The rain hit the cracked ground in sharp drops, turning the dust into mud as the vehicle roared across the alien plains. The human driver's hands gripped the metal levers, guiding the battered machine through the storm. Behind him, strapped into a metal seat with glowing restraints around her wrists, sat the alien girl. Her pale silver hair clung to her face, and her eyes darted toward the blurred shapes moving in the distance. She thought she knew where he was taking her. She thought she was being driven to her death. The driver did not look back at her. His eyes scanned the horizon, watching for movement in the fog. Each bump of the ground made the vehicle shake, but his grip never faltered. The girl's mind raced with questions she dared not speak. Her people had told her humans were cold and ruthless. They would use her and discard her. Her heart pounded as the vehicle swerved sharply to avoid a massive crater in the earth. She thought she was heading toward the execution grounds. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the jagged silhouette of something large moving across the field. The girl's breath caught as she saw its tail sweep through the air, knocking over a cluster of metal spires. The driver pressed a button on the console, and the vehicle's side panels shifted, shielding them from debris. The roar of the storm mixed with the distant cries of alien beasts. She looked at the human's back and wondered why he was in such a hurry. Every second brought them closer to the unknown. Her restraints glowed brighter as the vehicle hit another bump. She tried to pull her arms free, but the cuffs were locked to the seat. The human's voice finally broke the silence. "Stay still if you want to live." His tone was calm but urgent. She stared at him, trying to read his expression beneath the rain-streaked visor. It was the first time he had spoken since they left the compound. Her fear only deepened. Why was he telling her to survive if she was going to die anyway? A deep vibration ran through the ground, shaking the vehicle. The driver swore under his breath and pushed the throttle forward. Ahead, the fog began to thin, revealing flashes of fire and movement. Shapes twisted in the shadows, machines, weapons, and soldiers locked in chaotic battle. The girl's eyes widened as she realized they were heading straight toward it. The human's jaw tightened. "Hold on," he said. The vehicle leapt forward into the chaos, and she braced herself for whatever waited beyond the smoke. The battlefield was a storm of light and sound. Explosions lit the dark sky, and the ground shook with the impact of heavy weapons. The human driver steered the vehicle between burning wrecks, his focus never wavering. The alien girl kept her eyes on the chaos, her fear rising with every second. Soldiers in strange armor ran past them, shouting orders in languages she could not understand. The scent of smoke and scorched metal filled the air like a warning. The girl's mind struggled to make sense of what she was seeing. She had expected to be taken to an isolated place, somewhere hidden from the world. Instead, she was in the middle of a war. Her captor moved like someone who knew exactly where to go, avoiding danger with sharp turns and sudden bursts of speed. She saw bodies on the ground, both human and alien, and her stomach twisted. This was no place for her, yet here she was, trapped and powerless. A blast of energy struck the ground ahead, sending shards of rock into the air. The driver swerved hard, and the vehicle nearly tipped over before landing back on its wheels. The alien girl's restraints dug into her skin as she tried to keep herself from being thrown from the seat. She wanted to ask him why they were here, but the words stuck in her throat. Her fear kept her silent, and the roar of the battlefield drowned out her thoughts. The human's voice cut through the noise. "We need to reach the transport bay." His tone was sharp, leaving no room for questions. She did not know what a transport bay was, but she understood it meant movement, escape, or perhaps another kind of trap. He pressed a button, and the restraints around her wrists loosened slightly. She flexed her hands, feeling the blood return to her fingers, but she did not move. Something in his voice made her hesitate to run. They passed through a row of shattered barricades, each one marked with burn marks from heavy fire. The human kept one hand on the controls and the other near a weapon strapped to his leg. His armor was battered and scorch marks ran across the plating, but he moved like someone who had been in worse fights before. The alien girl watched him carefully. For a moment, she thought she saw something in his posture, a weight, a burden he carried. That had nothing to do with her. In the distance, she spotted towering machines stomping through the battlefield. Their weapons tore through anything in their path, and the shockwaves rattled the vehicle. The human took a narrow path through a collapsed structure, the metal groaning under the weight of their passage. She realized he was using the ruins for cover, shielding them from the larger war machines. This was not the behavior of someone delivering her to an execution. It felt more like he was keeping her alive. A sudden burst of gunfire erupted from the left, striking the vehicle's side. The human swore and pulled the controls sharply, sending them behind a pile of debris. He drew his weapon and fired back, each shot precise and controlled. The alien girl's heart pounded as she ducked low, gripping the edges of her seat. The air filled with the sound of metal tearing and weapons discharging. She saw a shadow move past them and realized they were being hunted. The human dropped back into the driver's seat and slammed the throttle forward. The vehicle surged ahead, bouncing over broken terrain. The girl looked back and saw figures in dark armor chasing them, their weapons glowing with dangerous energy. The human's eyes narrowed as he took a sharp turn down a slope, the vehicle skidding through the mud. The sound of the rain mixed with the whine of engines and the distant roar of machines, tearing each other apart. They reached a lower level of the battlefield, where the noise of the fight was muffled by the surrounding walls of collapsed buildings. The human slowed the vehicle, weaving through the shadows. He finally spoke again, his voice steady but urgent. "We have a few minutes before they find us." She stared at him, still unsure if he was her savior or her captor. In the silence that followed, she realized her fate was now tied to his decisions. The rain slowed to a steady drizzle as the vehicle crept deeper into the ruins. The alien girl could hear the faint hum of the engine and the occasional crack of distant gunfire. Her eyes scanned the shadows, searching for movement. Every corner seemed like it could hide an enemy. The human driver kept one hand on the controls and the other near his weapon. His breathing was calm, but his eyes were sharp, measuring every path ahead. They passed under the remains of a collapsed bridge. Loose cables swayed in the wind, brushing against the vehicle as they moved. The girl's cuff still glowed faintly, a reminder that she was not free. Yet she could not ignore the way he kept steering them away from the loudest parts of the battle. It was as if he was protecting her, though she could not understand why. She shifted in her seat, her damp clothes clinging uncomfortably to her skin. A loud crash echoed from behind. The girl turned quickly, spotting one of the massive war machines forcing its way through the debris. Sparks flew as its metal limbs crushed stone and steel alike. The human cursed under his breath and pushed the throttle forward. The vehicle jolted ahead, tires skidding across wet ground. The machine's glowing sensors locked onto them, and a burst of energy tore through the air where they had been seconds before. The chase forced them into tighter streets between broken buildings. The human navigated with precision, turning sharply to keep the machine from getting a clear shot. The girl gripped the side of her seat, her heart racing. She could feel the heat from the energy blasts striking the walls around them. Dust and smoke filled the air, stinging her eyes. Still, the driver pressed forward, his focus unshaken. She wondered if this was the only reason she was still alive. They reached an open plaza where the remains of alien statues lay scattered. The human swerved toward a half-destroyed tunnel at the far end. The girl looked back to see the war machine trying to follow, its large frame struggling to fit between the narrow gaps. A final blast from its weapon struck the edge of the tunnel, sending a shower of rubble down behind them. The noise faded as they sped through the darkness, the tunnel walls reflecting the dim glow of the dashboard lights. Inside the tunnel, the sound of the rain was replaced by the echo of the engine. The human slowed the vehicle and glanced at a small display on his console. Lines of alien script scrolled across the screen. The girl recognized the markings. They were from her own people's technology. Her eyes narrowed. "Why do you have that?" she asked. His answer was short. "Because it is the only way to get you out of here." She had no reply. His words only deepened the mystery. A faint blue glow appeared ahead. The tunnel opened into an underground chamber where pools of still water reflected the light from overhead vents. The human parked near a cluster of abandoned crates. He stepped out, scanning the area with his weapon ready. The girl stayed seated, her eyes following his every move. He returned and unlocked her restraints. "You can walk from here," he said. Her legs felt stiff as she stood, uncertain if she should run or follow. They moved together through the chamber, their footsteps echoing on the wet stone. The girl noticed symbols carved into the walls, ancient and worn. She recognized them as warnings from long before her time. This place had been abandoned for a reason. The human stopped suddenly, holding up a hand for silence. From the far end of the chamber came the sound of metal scraping on stone. Something else was down here, and it was moving toward them. The glow from the vents dimmed as shadows shifted across the walls. The girl's pulse quickened. The human raised his weapon, stepping in front of her. "Stay behind me," he said. She felt the urge to argue, to demand answers, but the sound of the approaching steps silenced her. The air grew colder, and the scraping noise grew louder. Whatever was coming was not part of the war above. It belonged to the depths they had just entered. Asterisk. The sound of scraping metal grew sharper as the figure emerged from the darkness. It was tall and insect-like, with long limbs ending in jagged claws. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Scanning the chamber, the alien girl froze in place, her instincts screaming for her to flee. The human took a steady step forward, his weapon aimed high. The air between them felt heavy, as if the creature's presence had changed the weight of the room. The creature tilted its head, letting out a low, grinding hiss. The girl realized this was not one of the soldiers from the war above. This thing was older, built for a different purpose. It moved with the slow confidence of something that had never been hunted. The human adjusted his stance, keeping himself between the girl and the threat. His voice was calm when he spoke. "When I tell you to move, you run." She nodded without a word. The creature lunged, its claws tearing through the stone floor as it charged. The human fired, bright flashes lighting the chamber. The blast struck the creature's armor, leaving black scorch marks but failing to stop it. The girl stumbled backward, the cold water splashing around her legs. The sound of the gunfire echoed endlessly, each shot followed by the crack of stone breaking. Still, the human held his ground, forcing the creature to focus on him. The girl spotted a narrow passage along the wall, half hidden behind a fallen pillar. She hesitated, unsure if it was a safe path or a dead end. The human noticed her looking, and shouted, "Go!" She ran toward it, the sound of the battle behind her filling her ears. The passage was tight, forcing her to turn sideways to fit through. Her hands scraped against the rough walls as she pushed forward, her breath coming fast and shallow. Behind her, the human moved back slowly, firing at the creature while keeping his escape open. The monster's claws tore through the crates, sending splinters flying. A powerful swipe knocked the weapon from his hands, but he ducked under the next strike and retrieved a smaller sidearm from his belt. Each movement was fast and precise, showing years of training. He backed into the passage just as the creature slammed into the opening, its claws scraping against the stone. The narrow wall stopped the monster from following. It hissed in frustration, the sound echoing down the passage. The girl waited for the human to catch up, her eyes wide and her hands shaking. He grabbed her arm and pulled her forward, moving quickly through the twisting tunnel. The air grew warmer as they descended, the sound of the creature fading behind them. Only the drip of water and the distant hum of machinery remained. They emerged into another chamber, this one filled with rows of strange devices. The girl recognized them as old power generators from her people's technology, though they had not been used in centuries. The human moved toward one of them, pulling a small device from his belt. He began pressing buttons, and the generator flickered to life. The sudden hum of energy filled the room, making the walls vibrate faintly. The girl stared, confused about his plan. "This will light up the escape tunnels," he explained without looking at her. "But it will also draw attention. We have to move fast." She followed as he led her to a metal platform at the side of the chamber. A set of rails led into a dark tunnel ahead. He activated a control panel, and a small transport cart rolled into place. It was old but functional, its lights flickering weakly. He motioned for her to get in. The girl stepped onto the cart, her hands gripping the cold metal railing. The human took the controls, and the cart lurched forward, picking up speed as it entered the tunnel. The wind whipped against their faces as they raced through the darkness. She glanced at him, still unsure of his true intentions. But in this moment, with danger behind them and the tunnel stretching ahead, she knew her survival depended entirely on him. The transport cart rattled over the old rails, its weak lights cutting through the darkness. The alien girl kept her eyes on the tunnel ahead, though she could feel the human's presence beside her. The sound of rushing air filled the narrow space, masking every other noise. Her hands tightened around the railing, her mind torn between fear and the strange sense of safety he gave her. The tunnel curved sharply, and the cart leaned hard to one side. The girl braced herself, her hair whipping across her face. For a moment, she thought they might derail, but the human's grip on the controls was steady. He shifted the speed, slowing them as a faint light appeared in the distance. She felt her pulse quicken, unsure if that light meant freedom or another trap. They burst from the tunnel into an open cavern lit by natural skylights above. Beams of sunlight cut through the drifting dust, falling across ancient stone structures. The air was warmer here, and the faint scent of plants carried from somewhere unseen. The human stopped the cart near the edge of the stone platform and stepped out first, scanning the area with his weapon ready. She followed cautiously, her eyes scanning the vast space. Movement caught her attention near one of the broken archways. A group of figures stepped into view, their armor bearing the markings of her people. Relief surged through her chest, but it vanished just as quickly when she saw the weapons aimed in their direction. The leader of the group spoke sharply in her native language, demanding the human step away from her. She turned toward him, confused. His voice was steady when he replied, "I am not leaving her." The soldiers advanced, their rifles trained. On him, the girl stepped forward, placing herself between them and the human. She spoke quickly, telling them he had saved her life. The soldiers hesitated, their eyes shifting from her to the man behind her. The leader's expression hardened, and he gave a short order. 2 soldiers lowered their weapons, but the others kept them raised. Tension filled the air, heavy enough to feel in her chest. The human slowly holstered his weapon, but his stance remained guarded. "If you want her alive, you let us pass," he said firmly. The leader studied him for a long moment before signaling the others to stand down. The girl exhaled in relief, though she could still see the distrust in their eyes. They had not expected to see her with a human, and even less to hear she owed him her life. They were led through the ruins toward a hidden passage on the far side of the cavern. The girl walked beside the human, her voice low so the soldiers could not hear. "Why did you do this for me?" His gaze stayed forward as he answered, "Because you were never my enemy." The words struck her deeper than she expected, breaking through the fear that had followed her since the beginning. of their journey. At the passage entrance, the leader turned and told her she would be taken to safety. He glanced at the human but said nothing to him. It was clear he was not welcome beyond this point. The girl hesitated, her heart torn. She looked back at the man who had risked everything to bring her here. His armor was scarred, his face shadowed under his helmet, but she could see the strength. In his posture, he had given her more than safety. He had given her trust. She stepped closer to him, her voice firm, despite the lump in her throat. "You are not my enemy either." For a moment, the tension between them eased, and a faint smile touched the corners of his mouth. Then she turned and walked toward the soldiers, her steps slow, her mind holding on to the memory of his courage. The sound of the human's footsteps faded behind her, but the knowledge of what he had done would never leave her.